Hello and welcome back to the game room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love talking about? Games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me. And that's not the 3,314 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. We've made it to another number, over 3,300 subs. Thank you guys so much. I can't say it enough. It is so nice having you here on this YouTube journey where we're more or less collecting, playing games, talking about games, and just, I can't thank you guys enough. So for today's video, like I keep saying, I'm running out of 360 games. I actually went through and I opened up about 4 or 5 games for this week that I just, you know, when I bought them, I could only find them new. So that's what we're gonna do. Though I still haven't opened up the Cybertron game. But anyways, we got another 10 games coming your way. If that sounds interesting, let's check it out. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, so we're going to get started with a game that I've heard a lot of mixed things about. I've heard it's absolutely terrible, and then I've seen people say it's actually pretty dumb fun if you get far enough in it. Now, this was a game that I had to open, so I originally picked this up for $20 sealed, though it definitely was an old seal. It was falling apart, and that game is Morph X. So, never heard of it, and didn't know a single thing about it. This game really reminds me a lot of sort of that PS1, N64 era of 3D game, kind of like the Duke Nukem 3D, or that kind of just wandering around levels, knowing kind of what you're supposed to do, but not exactly. Switches can be opened and turned on. You're not exactly sure what it does. Now, as you progress through the game, you eventually start morphing into this crazy creature. There's this whole storyline where there's just nuts symbiosis is going on, and this big war, and this demon type things, and where you come into play, it's not quite clear. But I made it through the first 2 stages, and I can tell you, it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult in a not so fun way. There's these nodes you can get health from that usually don't have much health in them. You have a symbiote power that allows you to use these things that you're getting from the aliens. So these aliens have invaded, and you, for some reason, can absorb them. And that can also get you health back. It can give you night vision. Down the line, you'll get more and more morphing abilities. Or you can find these little nodes that allow you to then improve yourself by connecting red nodes to green nodes. And it's almost like a big puzzle thing, because you get different types of puzzle pieces, ones that are curved, ones that are straight, and so you're having to make this jigsaw where you can either make yourself get more from the mutant powers, where you have more health, things of that nature. And then there's a gunplay element too. Now enemies blow up real good. This game is exceptionally violent. You'll get a shotgun shot, people blow up, throw grenades, people blow up. But you also have a health bar, and you are constantly taking damage. And there's not an easy way to aim. The movement's kind of janky. I'm guessing this was a fairly early 360 game, but I could be wrong. But all in all, I had so much fun with this game, much more than I thought I would, if, with the caveat, you have persistence. Because I got to the end of the first stage, and there's this part where you have to go into kind of like a 3-tier section. You're getting shot from enemies at all ends. They spawn endlessly, and you have to go all the way up, open up a door, all the way down, and then go out, and then it will save and continue on from there. And it is generous that when you die, it does fill up your health, but the checkpoints are far and few between. Now, it does do a nice thing where if you find one of those nodes where it gives you the ability to improve yourself with the green to the red nodes, those don't go away, but it can be frustrating. I probably spent a lot more time on this game than I thought I would, and compared to some of the other games, because I spent so long trying to get through that section. Think of the elevator section from Turok that I talked about a couple months ago. Like that. But still rewarding. I got the second stage, you're basically running from this giant crab monster mutant thing, which was a lot of fun, because you have the two enemies, the mutants fighting against the soldiers, and then you're just running around trying to survive. By the end of it, you get into this big machine gun, start gunning it down. Like, it's fun. It's a fun, solid game, and I can understand why people might not like it. I'm not saying it's great, but that's kind of the point of these. This is a fun experience, much more fun for myself than going and playing the latest live service game no one gives a damn about. And $20 new, you can still find it around there. Maybe it's $20 CIB, but I enjoyed it. I would, if you have patience, I'd recommend checking it out, because it's got some unique stuff in it. And like I said, I want to get later in the game when you really get the more things, because I hear that's a lot of fun. Alright, so I talked about the second game in this series last week, and this week I decided to check out Lost Planet 3. And I gotta say, it felt completely different than Lost Planet 2 as far as the setup. In this game, instead of going down and immediately being in the action in a squad and feeling like there's no rhyme or reason to what's happening, this game has you start off as an old man who's, I think it's your grandkid that you're talking to, and then you say, I've made some mistakes, and then you go back in time, and then suddenly now it's showing you when you first got to this planet, you're back into the ice planets, and it's still that same frenetic combat that's very arcadey. But it made me think of something. It's interesting how much of this non-linear storytelling was really coming into the vogue around the late 2010s. And I think back to myself, I'm like, yeah, that's when Lost came out. That was, Prison Break, Supernatural, you have Inversion, you have all these other things. Even Breaking Bad did it, where it really became popular to have a story beat start and then jump back in time, or jump forward in time and then mystery box or piece together this happened, this and there. And you see this a lot in gaming. This happened in Prototype. And it's kind of like one of those things where now, I feel like now in 2024, we've kind of gotten over that, where it's almost more appealing, where it just starts as a storyline and progresses. That's the new thing now. That's the one that seems novel, whereas this other non-linear storytelling was very novel back then. And now that I kind of recognize that as, oh, that's why I'm seeing a lot of this, I feel a little bit less irritated, because now it's like, okay, because, why they did it in Lost Planet, why do I care, why can't it just be linear? But alright, maybe they're going somewhere, yeah, you can have some cool reveals that way. But game-wise, it seems very similar to the second one, but a lot more focused. You're not in a squad. It seems, in my opinion, it seemed better. I liked the detail more so. I liked building the characters, getting to know the crew, the fact that you're some mercenary, more or less, getting to this island or this place. Then you can collect money by harvesting the creatures from there. But it's a very volatile substance. So I'm down for it. I can see how maybe someone wouldn't like it as much as the previous game, because the other one was just kind of all action versus this one actually has a story. But once again, I haven't played the first one. I almost picked it up. I did find a copy, but it seemed like $10. I'm like, I could probably find it cheaper than that. But anyways, fun one. Lost Planet 3. Compared to the second one, I actually like this one more. But I could be wrong. Like I said, I only put so much time into this, but I enjoyed the pacing of Lost Planet 3 more than the way 2 felt. And I like the ice planet. I like the ice world more, just because it's not an area I find all the time. Versus the jungle in Lost Planet 2 was just very brown, muddy, and in my opinion, pretty ugly. Alright, here's another game I had to open. I've had this game since, I want to say, March or April. You guys suggested me picking it up back when I got a bunch of the games like Dark Messiah, Fuse, etc. But I picked this one up. I could only find it new, and so I just hadn't gotten around to opening it. And that game is Inversion. Now, I've heard Inversion is basically just a Gears of War clone, and yeah, that's essentially what it is. But in this world, the invaders seem to be human, and then they can control the flow of gravity. So you can be in the map, and then suddenly gravity goes from being up to down to left to right, and now you're suddenly walking on the sides of buildings. and it has the same feel of Gears of War. You have a big gun with a bayonet on it, which unfortunately is nowhere near as satisfying as the chainsaw. And that's got to be one of those things where if you're going to copy Gears of War, at least do the most satisfying thing the right way. Like have an animation where you're slicing them or doing this or that. But game-wise, it's fun. It's fun. I probably would say this is one, if you love the Gears of War series, that's kind of what's nice about these clone games that no one played or no one really knew about, is that it does really feel like you're playing a game in that series. You start off the game as two detectives. When, once again, the non-linear storytelling, it kind of jumps backwards and forwards, so it shows you in the midst of things, and then it sends you back in time, and then you're captured, and then it goes back to the invasion day, and you're looking for, once stuff starts going down, you originally were going to go visit your wife for your anniversary or your kid or something of that nature. But of course, it's going down, so you and your partner drive to your building. Your wife unfortunately passes. Your daughter's been kidnapped. Apparently this race of invaders kidnaps children, and I'm guessing the whole point of the game is going back and trying to rescue your kid. So it's an interesting setup, but the mechanics are solid. The idea of the gravity inverting and changing, I could see leading to some very interesting gameplay. And as someone who likes Gears of War, and once again, I've gotten to the point now where don't really feel like we've gotten a good one in recent years, this is one I'd like to put some more time into. And I'm pretty sure it's co-op. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's local. No, it's not. Interesting. Online multiplayer. All right, forget that. But still, cool game. And pretty affordable. All right, so here's a game that I picked up because I saw RNG Gamer talk about it, and he was always saying he's never seen it in person, and I agree. Never seen it in person, and that game is the Deadfall Adventures. Now, what's funny is it seems like there was only new copies of this online. There was several people who had it new, and this was new. I opened it up because I wanted to see what it was like, and it's clearly a game that was ported from PC, and there are some major problems with this port. So this is a very... kind of like the way Darkest of Days were, but worse. The first time I put the game in, it was loading, but it didn't load. I played the game a little bit, and I got to a point where the game just froze, but it will go eventually. Basically, what this is do you like Indiana Jones? Well, this is an Indiana Jones game that makes no shame about its inspiration to the point where it's actually kind of fun. They'll have jokes right out of it. The main character is the son or the grandson of Alan Quatermain, which if you know anything about literature, Quatermain is like the archetype of the big game hunter in the heart of Africa. And it's the guy in Jumanji is kind of based on him, the big shooter guy. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Alan Quatermain was Sean Connery. So it's a very important literary figure. It's also in the public domain now too. But more or less, it's an insert for Indiana Jones when it can't be Indiana Jones. And it has the same tongue-in-cheek humor. The main villain who comes up to you looks like the guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark. He has a similar accent. They throw you with a journalist who, obviously there's some tension between the two of them immediately. And it also breaks some fundamental filmmaking rules, whereas if you know anything about filmmaking, one of the things you always say is you don't want to do a 180-degree turn when you're in the same scene. So if you see me looking this way and then if you cut to me looking this way, and it breaks the illusion, it breaks the thing. Like, you want to feel like you're naturally watching the movie as a viewer. So when you do something and you go from the guy being like this to the next scene you cut to like this, it's just very jarring to the eyes. Notice this. Look at this when you see this. Most movies are good about not doing this, but this game is not, especially in the first action sequence when you and the girl are trying to escape from the people who are coming after you. But I see a lot of potential in this, as funny as it sounds. I see a lot of potential. It really does have that, if that Indiana Jones feel, much more so than Uncharted or Tomb Raider, because those games try to evoke the feeling of Indiana Jones, whereas this one comes out and outright says it. And then you add on the fact that it uses that cool tidbit of the Quartermain series, and I'd like to put some more time into it, but yeah, like I said, it did break on me a couple of times, so it might be a very frustrating playthrough, but one that you can still find new, and I almost think there's no actual open copies out there because no one bought it, and I am glad that RNG Gamer recommended it, because it was a decent enough time. I liked it. Alright, this is one, like I say, I'm running out of games, and sometimes I just like to throw out some stuff for the collector bits here, or just, some obvious picks. But a game that you may not know came with a slipcase is Ninja Gaiden 2. Now, I recently talked about Ninja Gaiden 3, and I said how I preferred this one because there was a lot more decapitations, a lot more brutality against the villains. And then when I was looking at Ninja Gaiden 3 footage, I'm like, wait a minute. Did I mess up something? I'm like, no. Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge restored some of the coolness that Ninja Gaiden 2 introduced, which was a lot of the decapitations and the brutality of the fighting the enemies. And this game comes with a slipcase. And it's funny, I never really see the slipcase on Ninja Gaiden 2. I bought this brand new when it came out back in 2008, I want to say. And I really, really liked it. It was very difficult. Not gonna lie, it was very difficult. I still have nightmares of the double fire turtle fight for some reason. I feel like that was something that really stuck with me. Not as good as God of War, but it kind of satiated that God of War itch for myself because I didn't get a PS3. So while I wanted to play God of War 3, I picked up Ninja Gaiden 2. And even though I didn't really have much of an affinity for the NES Ninja Gaidens, it was one of those things that I would typically do where it's like, okay, this is a long-running series. It's now in 3D. Let's check it out. And even though it is the second one, I enjoyed it. And just so you collectors out there know, it does come with a slipcase. This is a very, very fun game, but very, very difficult. It's a lot of that trial and error. More, kind of like if you like Dark Souls kind of running your head up against the wall, then this game might be for you. Otherwise, stay away from it because it's just going to frustrate you. All right, here's one that, once again, kind of with the more obvious choices, but this is just a fun thing, and I got it in that lot that came with Cold Step Saga, I think. Either that or the one with Import Tuner. That's Forza Motorsport 4, the Essentials Edition. Now, the Essentials Edition, this comes with a little bit more DLC on it, but I've never played a Forza game. Like I said, I'm not the biggest racing fan, so I just wanted to pop this in. Check it out. I do enjoy how it has all of the actual brands, and as someone that was in the car industry for a while, it was really cool being able to see, like, wow, they have 1995 NSXs. My first car was a 69 GTO Judge. They have a GTO Judge in it. So I can see, much like what got me into Gran Turismo 2, there being a Dodge Charger, I could see myself getting down, collecting the cars, going through it. But the actual racing itself, I found kind of boring. Not gonna lie, it just seemed like I was driving in a straight line, going around the cars, and then once I got in first, I just drove in a straight line, and that was it. Didn't really feel any power to the drifting. I like the rewind feature, that was cool. But hey, these games are dirt cheap, and if you're into racing, they're still making them. So I enjoy it not being open world. I think the newer ones are open world where you're looking for races. But hey, let me know. I do plan on getting a Series X here in the next few months. Maybe even that crazy Galaxy one. For why? I don't know. It just looks cool. I'm sure it'll be collectible. But I do know that there's some newer games on those systems, so let me know if you guys played them. Is that worth checking out? All right, here's one that I had heard about a couple of times. Not many people talk about it, and it has a very interesting ground mechanic. Almost reminds me a little bit of a godsend, the way you can raise and lower ground. But that is Fracture. And it takes place far in the future. It's funny that it's kind of on the outset of the San Francisco Bay Area, but it looks like the water level has gone down. Now, I kind of skipped the intro, so I missed if that was the case, but it seems like there's these warring factions. This guy needs to be taken in. He's not going. You eventually end up to the fort of Alcatraz, which that's always cool. And the big hook of the game is that you can manipulate ground. So it's more or less just a third-person shooter. Which also an interesting thing too with some of these earlier 360 games is that the call, or not even early, even the mid ones, but there wasn't such a universality of if it's a first person shooter, the left trigger is going to zoom in, the right trigger is going to fire. I mean, I've seen that on a couple of these games. I want to say Jericho was like that too. So sometimes you would have to push in the right stick, and that would get you down sights, because in this game you throw a grenade with the left trigger, so you kind of got to retrain your mind a little bit because you're so used to Gears of War and Call of Duty having these universal controls that you forget. Much like back on the NES, you would play a game where A would jump or B would jump, and usually it's always A jumps, but that's how it's Mario and all that. But then when you go to a game where B jumps, you got to retrain your mind to think differently. Which for myself, I never really had that much trouble with it, but when I see people complain about controls and they bring that kind of stuff up, it does lead me to bring it up as an interesting thing where if you pick up some of these games I've recommended, just bear in mind that they may have different control schemes. But in my opinion, learning that and being able to adjust to that is something important to do anyways. So I would highly challenge you to get good at that, get familiar with that. It's also one of the reasons why I love the N64 controller, because that happened all the time. And as you know, I like to pontificate and speculate as why things become the way they are. And I often think that's one of the reasons why people, when they go back and say, I don't like the GameCube controller, N64, things of that nature, it's because they don't like changing control sets. Because let's face it, guys, ever since the 360, we have almost an identical movement system. Like, it's either going to move like an Oblivion, a Skyrim, move like a Dark Souls, move like a Metroid. Like, there's these universal control schemes now that I think are a detriment, in my opinion. But anyways, off my high horse here. All right, now this is one. I've not mentioned any fighting games, guys. I'm sorry. I do not like the fighting game genre. It's not that I'm not good at it, which I'm not good at it. But if you put enough time into it, you can get good at it. It's just one of those things where I know Smash Brothers isn't considered a fighting genre, but when Smash Brothers came out on the N64, I put all other fighting games behind me just because I enjoyed that style more. But one of the games I always loved was Mortal Kombat, and when Mortal Kombat 2009 was announced and came out, it was just such a breath of fresh air. The series post Mortal Kombat 4 had just, in my opinion, gone down the tank. There was the awful movie. It seemed like they were always removing the characters' looks that were nice. Like, I liked my colored ninjas. You know, give me Ermac, Reigns, all those guys. Just palette swap them and I'm happy. They played, I don't know, that I like the way they look. That's why I love Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And the thing that made Mortal Kombat 09 so good, and this isn't even the one I'd recommend getting. So this is the initial release, but there's a version called the Mortal Kombat Complete Edition with a K, because they always got to put K in front of everything with this series. And that gives you all the DLC on the disc. So that's the one you want to get if you're a collector. But as far as fighting games go, it's super fun. Mortal Kombat games, I think it's still the peak because you have the characters looking like the characters. And there is a campaign mode in this game that still, I think, is the best campaign mode ever in any fighting game. And it's a lot of fun. It really, it plays with your mind because the whole point of the game is it's almost a retelling of Mortal Kombat's 1, 2, and 3. But then during the game, there's a time shift, so things change. Versus Smoke is supposed to become a robot with Sector and Cyrax, but in this version, Smoke is rescued. Well, because that happened, the ripple effect then leads to Sub-Zero becoming a robot, Ling Kuei type thing. So things you don't expect happening are interesting. And I know with Mortal Kombat 1 that came out this year, allegedly they did a similar thing, but then we have to deal with the fact that they changed a lot of stuff for that game that I just didn't really have much interest in. But a solid game, really fun fighter. I am not the guy to be talking to as far as fighting mechanics, but I enjoyed it. But like I say, I self-admittedly am not very good at them, and I don't really want to get good at them. But if you're going to pick up one, this is one to get, and definitely get the complete edition if you can. I think that's when they introduced, is that Predator and Freddy Krueger or Jason? I don't know. It was the first time they introduced these DLC characters that were very, guest characters from other franchises, and it was cool to see, and they've continued it since then with 10, 11, and I think with 1. All right, last 2 we're getting down here. So this is a game that I've been told forever that I should check out, and again, it's not a obscure game. It's a pretty common one, but there is a version of it that you should get that I have bought, but I have not received yet, and that is Dragon Age Origins. And I'd recommend the Ultimate Edition because it comes with Origins and then all 9 DLC packs on the same disc. And I think it's still, I got for $17. It's going up in price, but you can, be patient. You can find it for a little cheaper. But I've been told to death, this is a BioWare game. This is the game that came out between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2. Which is kind of insane when you think about it, that Mass Effect 1, Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect 2, Dragon Age 2, and then Mass Effect 3, I think came out in like a 6-year span. And then what? They spent all that time on Anthem, they had Mass Effect Andromeda, and now we're looking forward to Dragon Age Veilguard, which I don't know, I just have no interest in it. But Dragon Age Origins, for years I've heard, is a phenomenal game, and so I just went through, I picked the human noble class, there's 6 different opening scenarios, and I gotta tell you, I have not played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but this game gave me that illusion that I would imagine in Baldur's Gate 3 has made it so successful, where it literally did feel like you influenced little things that happened here and there. So how you interact with the cook, for instance, how you do that, how you do this, the responses you say, once again, it felt like it mattered. And from what I've read and what I've seen, it actually does matter what you say and do. And I was hooked by the initial story. I was hooked by the combat. I was in. You even get a doggo that's on your team that you get a pet. Love it. Guy called the Grey Wardens. Oh, you're gonna be recruited. There's this exposition happening, but you don't really find out about it, and then it doesn't matter before you go in. Love it. Like, I really think I could sink a lot of time into this game, and if you guys don't see me for a while, that's probably what happened. As far as games that would really appeal to me, this is, I've been told forever that this is one, but this one does. I like the idea of there's not an insane amount of chat trees. Everything you do does seem to matter. It's not exposition dump theater like happens all the time in, say, Oblivion or those type of games. The NPCs you can talk to are directed. The questions are directed. You don't have all this dialogue to get bogged down with. Combat-wise, reminds me a lot of World of Warcraft. The gearing system reminds me of that too. And that's not a bad thing. It's something, it's a contemporary of that. It came out in 2009. So that it's not completely bogged down with so much choice like we are in 2024. And that's why I think I'm very interested in it. And I'm a little hesitant now to not do this one before Baldur's Gate 3, because I feel like if I do Baldur's Gate 3 first, going backwards might prove a little difficult. But let me know. Is that the case? And then lastly, this is the last one that I opened up for this video. So like I opened up Inversion, I opened up Morph X, I opened up Deadfall Adventure, and then I opened up the Prince of Persia Limited Edition. And this is a slip case it's not even a slip case, it's a slip box. And as far as what the limited edition comes with, I think it's just an extra disc that has some DVD featurettes. So nothing crazy. Yeah, digital art book, digital this, original soundtrack. Well, that's pretty cool. So I've heard this game is fun. One of the things I downloaded before the Xbox store closed down was the epilogue, because I heard the epilogue is, and kind of like Azura's Wrath, it wraps up the story. But I can tell you, I've heard mixed things about this game. So it does seem like it's impossible to die, because you're constantly saved by the I would call her the Wind Lady. The combat is very deliberate. It's one-on-one, almost like a fighting game. You can only take 2 shots before you have to go into a quick time event to save yourself. But I enjoyed it. But it's very sluggish. It feels very off. And you can compensate for that. It's one of the things I always say is that I don't mind controls not being perfect because you can practice and get better at them. And the game is very generous where it doesn't allow you to die. So I can see this being a game where it's really hard to lose progress. But it's also a little janky. You know, it's not quite the wall running from Titanfall or Titanfall 2. You'll run up to the wall, and then it feels like you're moving a half second before. So everything is just, it feels a little slower. You do wall running, and you go up the wall, but it feels a little, not completely in your control. But all in all, it's still solid, and I can see this being very, very enjoyable. The story sets itself up a little bit like a Darksiders, or almost like a 3D Zelda game where you have to go and unlock the world. You have to cleanse these areas, and then once the areas have been cleansed, much like Skyward Sword, it seems to open up all these crystal tears or these seeds you need to collect throughout that environment. So most of the game, instead of being focused on combat, is more focused with traversing the environment, almost like the environment itself being a puzzle. And then once you cleanse it, then you have to go and get these seeds. And some of the seeds you can't get, so I imagine there's new abilities you unlock down the line. And the Wind Lady assists you in combat. There's a deflect system, there's this and that. And while not a phenomenal game, it's one of those ones where it's not for everyone. Once again, you have to be aware that the controls do take some adjustment. And in my opinion, you never quite get completely adjusted. But overall, especially because it's like a $10 game, $6 game, one I would recommend, and also one I didn't mind opening up. Like I said, I opened up 4 games for this. That's kind of how I'm getting to the bottom of the barrel. But that's what you get for this week, guys. Thank you so much for another great week. I will say I have been convinced to start looking more and more into the Nintendo Wii. Just to let you know, I really, really disliked the Wii as a hardcore Nintendo fanboy. When the Wii came out, it felt like it really betrayed my gaming proclivities because everything was motion controlled, everything was super casual friendly, and that's what led to me leaving and going to the 360 to begin with. So going back now, because I did play certain things like the Mario Galaxy, Punch-Out, stuff of that nature. Like, I enjoyed that. But it has a sour taste in my mouth. To this day, it was still the only Nintendo system, console-wise, that I did not buy while it was current. I relied on others for it. But now I'm kind of interested in checking out the library. And ironically, because I don't know what it is, I just have an eye for expensive taste. When I go and I read these hidden gems lists or go and look at this, I'm like, oh, that game looks interesting. Let's pull it up. $110. Are you kidding me? Like, why? I went to my local game store and I saw that they had a lot of the games I was interested in, and they were all like $70, $80, and I just wanted to go, you gotta be kidding me. I thought no one wanted the Wii. Why are the ones that I'm interested in the expensive games? Anyways, thank you again, guys. So that'll probably be the next venture we start looking into. And once again, I've been picking up PS3, PS4, Switch. You know, if you like this format, we can continue with that because I'm enjoying doing it. But I just can't thank you guys enough. It's so great having you. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.